All right, so I just recorded on our end, and Nicole, thanks for having us on today.
Hey guys, so this is Matt. I've been working with him for a few months now. I kind of came across him through some other athletic training pages and things like that. Him and his team, Jeff and Mike, they've been super beneficial for me personally and from a business standpoint. And I thought that they could share some good education and knowledge with us athletic trainers. I know this isn't always something that we tend to talk a lot about in school or anything like that, but it can always be something really important and make sure that we're well off financially and set us up for success. I know this COVID time has been challenging for a lot of us and changing how we do things and our normal daily life. So I thought Matt could talk to us for a little bit and give us some information and just help kind of educate us a little bit more. And feel free to reach out to him or his team for any specific questions you guys might have. They've been awesome. So over to you, Matt.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Nicole, and thanks for offering this opportunity to you and your employees at Sideline Sports. We always enjoy these conversations, and kind of as what you started to touch on, as athletic trainers, we don't get this education in the school system, and it's nothing to the profession standpoint. It's just there's not enough time in the day. And unfortunately, outside of the athletic training room, life is happening, and there's life events that set us back financially and or put us ahead. And it's just how do we create a balance and how do we navigate everything in life? So today I'm going to just begin by telling you a little bit about myself, sharing my story. But as I go through it, I always encourage athletic trainers to think, when have finances made a major impact on your life? And how does money shape the way you think about your future? For myself, my story starts back in 2006. I graduated, finished my undergrad degree, and that summer, not only did I finish up school, I got my first job, I got married, and I bought my first house. And from the outside, it looked like everything was on track, everything was perfect, but it was actually the beginning of financial derailment, so to speak, for me and my wife, because when we were sitting at the settlement table, they said, Matt, we need 2 years of W tax returns in order for you to qualify for this mortgage. And here I have 2 months, and I was a 1099 employee, so they couldn't go through the traditional mortgage the way, for the approval process, and they needed this documentation that I couldn't provide to them. So what they did was they came back, they put the mortgage under my wife, Stacy, made it 2 mortgages under her, 100% interest only for 10 years. And we didn't like it, but here we were at the settlement table with the sellers across, the moving trucks were packed, champagne was on ice, we were getting ready for a big celebration, and now we were potentially losing a house that we had fallen in love with. So we're like, well, okay, I guess we'll take the mortgage. And the lenders, they were like, you'll be fine. The market is on the rise. And in 2 years, you'll have your 2 years of W-2 tax returns. Just refinance and you'll be fine. Well, fast forward from 2006 to 2008, and that was the market crash. And now, not only are we in 100% interest only, but we're also upside down on the mortgage. And so as an athletic trainer, it's like, well, I can't stay in my current job. I have to go find another job. And I got involved with a startup company, was offered director of sports medicine position. It was a pay raise, someone from $32,000 to $50,000. And it was like, this is great. I built 3 high school athletic training contracts, hired 3 athletic trainers, and it's like, all right, I'm back on track. Life is good. Well, about 3 months into the position, I wake up on a Friday morning, go open up my bank account, and my bank account had reached $0. And I was like, how is this possible? I go to my deposit section. Here, I didn't get a paycheck that Friday. And I called my employees. I said, hey, did you guys get paid today? They said, yep. I called the CEO. I was like, I'm sorry. There might have been a mix-up. I didn't get compensated today. And he's like, I'm sorry, Matt, it's startup, but in your business agreement, operating agreement, that I could take away these the paychecks for you. And at the time, I didn't know operating agreements, buy-sell agreements. So long story short on that, I went 3 months with no income. I was paying my employees out of pocket, and that financial track got even more derailed. So I eventually turned my contracts over to another company. I worked as a physician extender. I pursued my passion in athletic administration, became an athletic director, and now we fast forward to 2015, 6 years later. I'm back on track, new house, new mortgage, life is good. And I get a call. I'm on cafeteria duty, and I always warn athletic trainers, especially if you're in the secondary school setting, read the fine print. If cafeteria duty's on there, stay away from it. But on cafeteria duty, I pick up a phone, didn't recognize the number, and here was a law firm. And a doctor that I worked for in 2012 was being named in a lawsuit for a patient that died, and I was being named in the lawsuit. So the silver lining in that story, and it's something that athletic training did very well for, prepared me for, was documentation. I simply had a Post-it note in the file, the patient's file chart, and it said, left voice message, go to ER immediately. I initialed it, I dated it, I put a time on it. And for myself, that got me off that lawsuit and off that case. But there I was thinking my life was back on track. I dug myself out of these holes, and now I could lose everything just with one phone call, something that happened years ago that I wasn't even aware of. So that's how money has shaped, the way I think about it. And so as you go through, you start to learn about your financial personality. And it's important to understand your type of personality, because it really does dictate your decisions that you make. And some common personalities that we see, athletic trainers, we like to set goals. We're motivated people. We like to work with motivated athletes, people that want to get back from injury recovery. So a lot of us have the ability to set goals for ourselves, and we're driven to hit those goals. But what happens when you don't quite reach it? Or what happens when something like the coronavirus comes along, and now all of a sudden it's out of our control? We can't reach our goals. How do we adapt, and how do we pivot and change? And it's important to have a coach on your side, and so to speak, almost an athletic trainer that is on the financial side to say, hey, this is what we can do to help get you back on track. You could be a procrastinator. It's very common as you go through. It's like maybe you don't have the education or the knowledge to make a decision. And like, I don't have to really worry about that right now. I'm just going to delay that. As athletic trainers, we see athletes all the time that come into the athletic training room, and the injury's been bothering them for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and they're just now seeing you. And as a professional, I could have done something about this had I been able to at least educate you 2 weeks ago on what to do. So by putting things off, sometimes it can come back to hurt you. Maybe you're a dream chaser. And this was me in 2009, going into startup business, thinking that, all right, this is great. I can be director of sports medicine, build out my own contracts. But as you're chasing your dreams, are you building a safety net underneath of you so that when things don't quite work out, you're able to prevent a long fall? And then on the flip side, if you do hit those goals, it opens up a whole new door of, oh, well, I don't know what to do from here. So understanding, both ends. If everything works out great, this is what I'm going to be able to do. These are my next steps. And if I fall, this is how I'm going to prevent a lot of damage. But when it comes to any type of personality you have, you want to make sure that you're not a pretender. That you want to make sure that you're not just going through making sure like everything's fine, everything's going to work out. And as athletic trainers, we write emergency action plans. We know our emergency action plan. We don't always use it, but we know. And depending on the situation that unfolds, we're able to systematically address that situation. And it's the same with your finances. If you have a plan in place and it's documented and you know, okay, it may not be happening right now, but this is going to set me up for 5 years down the road, 10 years, 20 years. It brings confidence. It also provides a little bit of clarity on why you're doing what you're doing. Now, the one thing I always stress is it's not how much money you make, but it's how you manage your money. Again, it's not how much you make, but it's how you manage it. You know, I'm out here in Philadelphia, and we have a lot of professional athletes who have come through town who have made millions of dollars, but yet they go through a period where they have to declare bankruptcy. And, you know, one of my best success stories recent, I had 3 athletic trainers. They only made about they were around the 40,000 mark, and started working with them about 2 years ago. And when we did our annual review meetings recently, said, hey, how are you doing? And all 3 of them said the same exact thing as, Matt, it stinks. I just got laid off. I don't have a job. But because of the planning you did for me and what you put in place, I'm comfortable. I'm going to be okay. I can weather this storm, and, you know, I'm not really getting set back. I'm not really moving forward as fast as I'd like to, but at least I'm still on track. One thing when we look at budgets, I call this the conceptual budget. And one common mistake, which I'm gonna get into a little bit later, is we have our salary, and it could be 35,000, 50,000, 100,000. And when we make financial decisions, it's very common for people to, in their mindset in the moment, to say, I make $35,000 a year, because that's what the lenders are going to ask you for. That's what, you know, if you're applying for credit, that's what they look at. But really know that you have taxes coming out, Social Security, Medicare, state taxes, 401ks, all this money's coming out. So really, if you can, from the start, kind of trick your mind and say, okay, this is my take-home pay. This is what I really have to work with. You can make sound decisions on where you're placing your money. And when we look at the protection plan, where you optimize your money and where you grow, we always start with the budget. And really, this is the core, right? Everything, all of these is the kinetic chain. It's all connected in one way, shape, or form, but we have to have good control over our budget from the start, because that's going to allow us to place the money where it's most appropriate in the long term. From a very high level, again, it's conceptual. It's not going to fit for everyone, and depending on where you are geographically, cost of living is different, and there's variables that are outside of our control. But what we try to start a platform with is 60% living, you know, your fixed expenses, your housing, transportation, food, the things that you need on a day-to-day basis. On the planning side, there's about 20%, maybe 30% in that range of, that's what you're putting into place for yourself for today and for the future. And then we also just need money to live for today. So instead of bringing it down to the dollar, for some people, they want to know the exact dollar amount. Other people like to think about it as a percentage. So there's different philosophies and ways that we can structure that for you to make sure it's, you know, what you feel is relative. So it's the reality check time. And this is the point where, you know, there might have been some things when you look at financial planning personalities that you're like, I never really thought that that's how I viewed finances, but it is. And it's kind of maybe either restricted me or propelled me in decisions I made in the past. Always encourage people to start their habits sooner than later. And for some of us, you know, if it's your very first job out of school and that's where you're at, you can put it in a place there. For some people, they're not starting this discussion until 30, 40, and it's a different type of conversation we have to have, because there's ground that we may have to make up. But the sooner you can start and instill habits, the better off you are. And it's very similar to an athlete working out. You know, the athlete that goes to the gym every day and hits all of the training sessions, the film sessions, they're dedicated to it. And over time, their body's going to get adjusted to those workouts, and you have to kind of change and adapt. It's the same, you know, you put in at one life stage, if you have a certain saving strategy or you're putting it into one specific bucket, well, 4 or 5 years down the road, that may not be the most appropriate, and we have to change where we're placing that money. So now this is how, okay? This is how we put things on paper, how we begin to organize. We're fortunate at IPG Philly that we have this tool. It's called the Living Balance Sheet. And it basically takes your financial plan and breaks it up into 19 different categories. And each of these categories provides valuable information. And at the end of the day, if you pool money or put money into one of these buckets, it's going to affect the overall financial balance sheet for you. We have a 4-step process, and Nicole, you can attest to this, where we look at protection and we really dive into, okay, these are the areas of protection that you need for yourself, whether individually or as a business owner. And if you are sued, for instance, that's the liability insurance. We talk about property and casualty insurance, umbrella insurance. If you were to get sick, so in this comes your disability insurance, your medical and health insurance, in your will and trust. We want to make sure that you have documentation in place. In the event something were to happen, who's going to be your power of attorney? Who's going to be making those decisions for you and or looking over all the assets that you've developed over time? And then, if you were to pass away, that's the life insurance discussion. Under your assets, we look at what personal property do you have for yourself, savings, and what saving strategies are you doing? Do you have stuff in the stock market, mutual bonds, savings bonds, retirement planning? Could be a 401k, 403b, IRAs, real estate, and business. In the red, you have your liabilities, short-term debt, taxes, mortgages, business debt, and then going back to that core, your budget, the money that's coming in, how are we capturing most of that, and where's that money getting divided? So this process here, it takes about an hour or so to build the platform. And what Jeff, Mike, and I would like to offer anyone, everyone with Sideline Sports is we can send you a PDF file that is a 13-page document that you can physically write everything out if you like to put things on pen and paper, or we can set up a client website where you have access to this. There's no cost, there's no charge, but it allows you to at least begin to organize your finances and see how financially balanced you really are. I am going to jump over here. I'm just going to freeze this. So to see what it would look like live for your own website, the first meeting that we always do with people is take them through the protection, the cash flow savings rate, life event planning, and living debt free. We just try to get the big picture on paper, and then from there, anyone can go in and start to make it very personalized for themselves. And when we meet with our clients, we take them through. And I don't know if you caught the name here. So this client named Proprioception, because it's all about balance, and so a little sports medicine humor there. But on the protection side, why we start with protection is athletic trainers, and I was guilty of this myself. We see ourselves as making $45,000, $50,000. However, I know that if you were to lose that income, right, and we were to whether it's disability, you get laid off, whatever it may be, but you have that permanent loss of income and you're not able to generate revenue for you and your family, there's $4 million throughout your working career that is lost. And also, that's also $4 million that can be managed. And how are we managing that money? So we determine what's called your human life value very early on. And we begin to build a plan around that that's going to help you reach your goals and address any concerns that you have. From a savings standpoint, the average American right now is only saving about 5% of their income. So if you're making around $45,000, you're saving 5%, putting away about $2,400 a year. It's a good start. However, this is where the discussion turns to, we need to be able to control what we can control. And as COVID-19, stock market has been all over the place. It's up, down, and hopefully you're not at retirement stage. But let's say you were coming up into retirement and you've been stocking money away at that 5% rate. You're sitting here with about $24,000 to live off of in retirement. Now, we can't control what's happening in the stock market at this point. It is what it is. But we can always control our savings rate. So if we can take a 5% and we just simply increase that to 10%, now you have $49,000 to live off of for retirement income. And what we consider a world-class saver, if we were to bump that up to 20%, now you're at $98,000 of income in retirement. So it's simply controlling what we can control, putting the money in the right buckets. This is a very conservative rate of return, but it's something that if the market doesn't perform the way we want it to, it's okay. We have a safety net in place because we kept the ball in our court and we controlled what we could. And then for assets and life event planning, we get into looking at understanding liquidity. And most people don't really take the time to think about when they can have access to their money, especially early in your career. We know that your bank accounts are your most liquid because you can access that. You can go to the bank, take out a withdrawal. You have that within a couple of days. But what most people don't realize is the value of cash value life insurance. That actually becomes the second most liquid. Your retirement and investments come in the middle. And again, what COVID comes, if the market's up, it's down, it's all over the place. On the investment side, you may or may not be able to sell. For retirement, most retirement plans, you have to be 59 and a half years old. There's circumstances like Mike is our expert on the investment side, and sometimes life events unfold and he can direct you to where you need to be and what options you have to withdraw money early if needed. And then the real estate equity, a lot of people think real estate's a good investment for the long term. The problem with real estate is a lot of times you have to either sell it or make sure you have a tenant that's making their monthly payments to generate revenue off of it. So when you look at liquidity, this is the order that we look at in building out the plan, but we also want to make sure all of our clients are balanced within their assets. And again, in the first meeting, we simply just start filling in very broad numbers and to see how the person's positioned. And then finally, the impact of debt. It's one that we don't enjoy discussing. For a lot of us, we may have student loans, we may have credit card debt, you have your mortgage payment, and what we try to do is make sure that we don't focus all of our attention to debt. It's the one that most people have a lot of, just it weighs on, keeps them awake at night. So we want to make sure that they're tackling those goals. But if you focus all your attention on paying down your debt right away, and another life event happens, something else comes along, it becomes a vicious cycle that you can never get out of. And it could be something as simple as a leaky roof, a water heater that breaks. And now it's, I just paid off my credit card, but now I have to put, this next project on my credit card because I don't have any cash available to me. So we provide a lot of education around that based on your individual position and where you're at. And then at the end, we look at your scorecard. And we want to see where there's options and opportunities to make improvement. whether you're short on life insurance or disability insurance, can we move you from red to yellow, from yellow to green? Where are the areas that you're really strong in? As athletic trainers, most of us have that professional liability insurance locked in right from day one. We know that's important, so we take care of it. In regards to your saving strategies, how are we doing there? And then, of course, your debt. Can we make progress on tackling down the debt? So again, we can offer this. All we need is name and an email address, and we can just email a PDF file that can be filled out, or we can go to what's called the client website, and we can create a real-time living balance sheet website. And on here, you can sync any banking that you do online, and you simply just find your institution that you bank with, and you can sync your accounts by typing in your username and user password. There's no transactions that can ever be done on it. It's simply information mitigation system that eMoney uses on the back end. Under your profile. Yeah.
So if you guys have ever used like Mint or any of those services like that, that's kind of where it just pulls the information. It doesn't give them access to your banks or anything like that. It just kind of gives you one place to look at all of your stuff, which is super beneficial because it's always in real time. So as things fluctuate, you can always go back and see kind of where things are at right there. So it's really helpful. Definitely recommend it.
Yep, good point, Nicole. One neat feature on here is, again, putting things on paper for yourself and have your goals and your concerns listed out so that you can always go back and say, am I making progress to these personal goals of mine? And, as athletic trainers, we always think about other people first, right? I mean, it's in the industry, we're always talking about, putting in long hours, not getting paid enough. And this can kind of be your go-to spot to say, hey, what am I doing for me? Because it's important that we take care of ourselves. Because if we're not happy with ourselves, we're not going to be able to help others and serve others the way that we want to. So by putting your goals and concerns on paper, and you can prioritize, if it's starting your business is your number one goal, and that way when you work with us, we can sit down and say, hey, this is what we can do to help you reach that goal. If you want to, this is what we're able to offer and provide for you. With, if you have a family making job changes, you can always go in and update your employer information and your salary, what you're making. Is it guaranteed income? Is it not? With Sideline Sports, a lot of that's per diem work, which is another whole conversation to have. When it comes to, most of us think I have everything taken care of I need from my employer. I have all my benefits, my life insurance, disability insurance. But the issue with that is that's only good with your employer. And what happens, what you're doing on the side, the income you're making there, is that income protected, and or are we optimizing how we're putting that money? Are you protecting yourself doing that side work if something were to happen? And we just make sure that's all buttoned up, but how it also ties together in your overall financial picture. So again, that's, most of us are doing the side work because we want that extra income. And we also want to make sure that doesn't become a detriment to us, or that we don't take advantage of the opportunity that's there. For, your mortgage, any part of your financial life can be found in this sheet. And that's what is so powerful with this tool. Your retirement accounts, you can even do a monthly budget in here on your cash flow, and you can lay out the visual for yourself on where am I spending my money, and is it a basic expense that I need to, like I don't have a choice, or is it discretionary and maybe I can reallocate some of my dollars. And it gives us that visual to make educated decisions on. And then you also have your scorecard up here that we discussed just a few moments ago, where you can go into every area of your financial world, whether it's protection, assets, liabilities, cash flow and say, how am I doing? Am I making improvements, or do I need to step up my game a little bit? So I hope that information was valuable. Nicole, is there anything that you'd like for me to touch on in addition?
Not specifically. Maybe just talk kind of a little bit about like what you could offer with them. Maybe after you could get them a living balance sheet and kind of talk through some of the things. I know for me, one of the benefits has been with Matt and his team is they understand kind of all the language that's in all these different insurance policies and documents and things like that. So maybe something that you think you have covered, they can take a look at it and really kind of read through those fine lines and tell you kind of the down and dirty of it, what exactly you get, where you're lacking, what kind of things that they might be able to recommend to you. Like Matt said, I mean, no pressure. It's not like anything like that. It's really just kind of a great educational tool to help you guys with success in your personal lives and things like that.
Yeah, and take that just one step further. I always tell people I don't pretend that I know everything. As I started my career, sports medicine, athletic administration, realized we weren't getting this type of education provided to us. And my biggest, it's my soft spot, it's my passion, is to educate athletic trainers around it. Jeff and Mike and the members of our team that know the ins and outs, it boggles my mind when I sit in meetings and I listen to everything that they know and all the details. But I just relate it back to an athletic trainer. If an athlete comes to us and they have an ACL tear or shoulder injury, we refer them to a specialist. And that's what we're trying to build out at IPG is, you come to us, this is what I have. This is your MRI that you're looking at in your financial world. And now it's, what are my options? And we're here to just provide that education and those options. And if you choose to implement, that's great. And if not, maybe down the road, the timing will be right where you do.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's definitely been recommendations that they've made for me that I've jumped right on. Other ones that I've said, further down the road, that might be something I'm willing more of. But really, it's just a great sounding board and educational tool. I've been able to learn a lot from them, and I appreciate you guys taking your time with me personally, and then today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're want to be here to help you, help Sideline Sports, and so you guys can keep making the difference in the athletes that you serve. So thanks for having us on, and we're here again. I'll send you, Nicole, just our contact information, emails, and that way you can send it out to everyone at the conclusion of this, and we would love the opportunity to begin with a conversation and just see where the conversation goes from there.
Sounds great. I can do that.
All right. That's all we have. And again, thanks for tuning in today. We also have a IPG Philly Facebook page where it's just content that we put out, articles that you may find interesting, so you can follow us there. And we also have a newsletter that we send out. So if you want, if we get names and emails, we can add people to the newsletter if they wish. If you work with Nicole in Sideline Sports Medicine, just know that we at IPG Philly are here to be a resource for you. And thanks again, Nicole. Keep making a difference in the world of athletic training.